Westinghouse Broadcasting Company brings you The Sound of War, the actual sound record of World War II. 2,191 days from the time Hitler's Panzer divisions moved across the Polish borders to the ceremony of the Japanese surrender aboard the United States battleship Missouri in Tokyo Bay. World War II, the most terrible period of death and destruction in the long history of man. World War II, a drama preserved for all time through the medium of radio, an era never to be forgotten.
Tonight, the most dramatic voices and sounds of the war. World War II was the first conflict in the history of man to have preserved for all time the sound record of its terrible, tragic moments. It is an unequaled record, for the course of the war is easily heard in the voices and sounds of the men and women and children who lived and died. And in their voices and words are sadness, hope, and eventual joy that was the transition from frustration and defeat to complete victory. This, then, is the war as we know it, with the people, many of whom have long since gone, who lived its terrible moments. It is September 29th, 1938. The scene, the Führer's Palace, the Führerhaus in Munich. In the most historic international meeting since World War I, to save the peace of the world. Four men sit and talk over the fate of Czechoslovakia. The men, Chancellor Adolf Hitler of Germany, Il Duce Benito Mussolini of Italy, Premier Edouard Daladier of France, and Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain of Great Britain. And what about Czechoslovakia? Proud, majestic Czechoslovakia. Their young men poised to defend the homeland against the Nazi oppression. Their leaders ready to sound the trumpet. Their populace ready to die on the land created for them by Great Britain and France after World War I. Czechoslovakia now stands alone. They are not invited to Munich. When the four-power meeting is over, Czechoslovakia was dead. They lost 1/3 of their nation, 1/3 of their population, all of their military fortifications. For all intents and purposes, they were eliminated from the face of Europe. Returning to London, Chamberlain waved the famous White Agreement paper that would result in peace in our time.
This morning,
it is now September 1st, 1939, less than 1 year later. Since the Munich Pact, Czechoslovakia has been fully swallowed and ceases to exist. Germany has signed an unbelievable non-aggression pact with Russia, and now the Nazis need not fear an attack from the east. So now Adolf Hitler looks east to Poland. Poland, a scavenger nation, grabbing land from helpless Czechoslovakia after Munich under the approving eye of Chancellor Hitler. Poland, a continuation of what Winston Churchill said a year before after Munich. The first sip, the first foretaste that will be proffered to us year by year. Poland, next on Hitler's timetable of world domination.
wie ein Mann erhebt sich die Versammlung der alten Mitkämpfer Adolf Hitlers.
Those assembled arise and stand to greet the arrival of the German Führer. The applause greets the Führer who has just arrived in the Fall Opera House to address the Reichstag, which has been called an extraordinary session. We are expecting that Prime Minister Göring in a very few moments will open formally the session in the Reichstag.
Wenn Polen versuchen sollte, auf dem Weg zollpolitischer Maßnahmen Danzig wirtschaftlich zu vernichten, dass ganz Deutschland nicht mehr länger untätig zusehen könnte.
I told the Polish ambassador 3 weeks ago that if the situation continued as it was, if Danzig were persecuted and it were attempted by Poland to ruin Danzig economically, the situation could not be tolerated.
We interrupt this broadcast of Adolf Hitler's speech just momentarily to report a dispatch from Paris which says that Premier Bloodshed of France has now called the French Council of Ministers for an emergency meeting which is to take place just 10 minutes from now at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
Ich habe mich daher nun entschlossen, mit Polen in der gleichen Sprache zu reden, mit der Polen und seit
I therefore resolve to speak to Poland in the same language in which Poland has addressed us for such a long time.
Sie wissen, dass Russland und Deutschland von 2 verschiedenen Doktrinen regiert werden. Es war nur eine Frage, die geklärt werden musste.
Once again, we interrupt very briefly this talk by Chancellor Hitler to announce that in London, Parliament has been summoned to meet at 6 p.m. in London, which is 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time today.
Nicht nach Deutschland zu exportieren gewinnt. Im selben Augenblick sehe ich keine Veranlassung mehr, dass wir auch noch einmal gegeneinander Stellung nehmen sollen.
I see no reason, says Mr. Hitler, why Russia and Germany should have been enemies any longer.
Polen hat heute Nacht zum ersten Mal auf unserem eigenen Territorium auch mit bereits regulären Soldaten geschossen.
Poland, for the first time this evening, has shot at regular soldiers upon our territory.
Und von jetzt ab wird Bombe mit Bombe vergolten.
From now on, bomb will be met by bomb.
Sieg heil to the Führer. The Reichstag is present singing the German national anthem. Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. This will be followed by the Horst Wessel song.
Germany attacked Poland on September 1st, and the world waited for the moves of France and Great Britain. After 2 days of furious negotiations between London and Paris, there was no turning back. The two allies would honor their treaty with Poland. They would march against Germany. Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain spoke to the British Empire.
This is London. You will now hear a statement by the Prime Minister. I am speaking to you from the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany. You can imagine what a bitter blow it is to me that all my long struggle to win peace has failed. Yet I cannot believe that there is anything more or anything different that I could have done and that would have been more successful. Up to the very last, it would have been quite possible to have arranged a peaceful and honorable settlement between Germany and Poland. But Hitler would not have it. He had evidently made up his mind to attack Poland whatever happened. And although he now says he put forward reasonable proposals which were rejected by the Poles, that is not a true statement. The proposals were never shown to the Poles, nor to us. And though they were announced in the German broadcast on Thursday night, Hitler did not wait to hear comments on them, but ordered his troops to cross the Polish frontier the next morning. His action shows convincingly that there is no chance of expecting that this man will ever give up his practice of using force to gain his will. He can only be stopped by force. And we and France are today, in fulfillment of our obligations, going to the aid of Poland, who is so bravely resisting this wicked and unprovoked attack upon her people. We have a clear conscience. We have done all that any country could do to establish peace. But a situation in which no word given by Germany's ruler could be trusted, and no people or country could feel itself safe, had become intolerable. And now that we have resolved to finish it, I know that you will all play your part with calmness and courage. At such a moment as this, the assurances of support which we have received from the Empire are a source of profound encouragement to us. When I have finished speaking, certain detailed announcements will be made on behalf of the government. Give these your close attention. Now, may God bless you all, and may He defend the right. For it is evil things that we shall be fighting against. Brute force, bad faith, injustice, oppression, and persecution. And against them I am certain that the right will prevail.
And now into our studio has just come Mr. Elmer Davis. Mr. Davis, I don't know whether you heard Mr. Chamberlain's statement or not. We've all been assembled here so hastily. You did hear it, and so perhaps you would like to come over here to the microphone and take over for a few moments, would you, sir?
Very little to add to the facts in this case. The tone of Mr. Chamberlain was that of a very tired and very saddened man, a man who a year ago gave up not only the safety and liberty of another country, though I do not think he had any idea at the time of how much he was giving up, but gave up a considerable part of the protection that the situation in Europe at that time had afforded to France and England for the sake of peace. Clear up till yesterday, it looked as if he might make greater sacrifices for the sake of peace, as if there might be some possible concession this time as there had been the time before. And you will remember that yesterday it was Mr. Greenwood, the leader of the opposition, who got the cheers in the House of Commons when he rose to speak and cries of "Speak for England." At that time, Mr. Greenwood fully realized the difficulties of Mr. Chamberlain's position and said he was glad he was not in that position himself. It was clear that Mr. Chamberlain, as he said, was not going to give up any single effort to settle this thing peacefully. But it is now his opinion that Hitler would not have it.
the United States, Americans were in the midst of a long Labor Day weekend. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt spoke to the people by radio.
My countrymen and my friends, tonight my single duty is to speak to the whole of America. Until 4:30 o'clock this morning, I had hoped against hope that some miracle would prevent a devastating war in Europe and bring to an end the invasion of Poland by Germany. For 4 long years, a succession of actual wars and constant crises have shaken the entire world and have threatened in each case to bring on the gigantic conflict, which is today, unhappily, a fact. I myself cannot and do not prophesy the course of events abroad. And the reason is that because I have of necessity such a complete picture of what is going on in every part of the world that I do not dare to do so. And the other reason is that I think it is honest for me to be honest with the people of the United States. I cannot prophesy the immediate economic effect of this new war on our nation. But I do say that no American has the moral right to profiteer at the expense either of his fellow citizens or of the men, the women, and the children who are living and dying in the midst of war in Europe. This nation will remain a neutral nation, but I cannot ask that every American remain neutral in thought as well. Even a neutral has a right to take account of facts. Even a neutral cannot be asked to close his mind or close his conscience. I have said not once, but many times, that I have seen war and that I hate war. I say that again and again. I hope the United States will keep out of this war. I believe that it will. And I give you assurance and reassurance that every effort of your government will be directed toward that end.
As the war moved in, there were young voices and sounds. Children were evacuated from Great Britain and sent to the United States and Canada. There were transatlantic phone calls at Christmas.
Thanks. How are you? I hope you're having a Merry Christmas. Listen, Violet. Yes. Come on now, don't be silly now.
Just a moment. Mrs. Dollar, just a moment. We'll have Violet for you in just a minute. Here's Ronnie. Here's Ronnie who wants to add a word, and then we'll come back to Violet.
Hello, Mom. Hello, Tom. How are you? I'm going to cry.
Also from the Empire, there were the voices of the daughters of King George VI, Elizabeth, later to be Queen, and Margaret Rose.
I can truthfully say to you all that we children at home are full of cheerfulness and courage. We are trying to do all we can to help our gallant sailors, soldiers, and airmen. And when peace comes, remember, it will be for us, the children of today, to make the world of tomorrow a better and happier place. My sister is by my side, and we are both going to say good night to you. Come on, Margaret. Good night, children. Good night, and good luck to you all.
And the war moved on, and for the Allies there was terrible defeat. In May of 1940, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain gave up his seals of office.
It was clear that at this critical moment in the war, what was needed was the formation of a government which would include members of the Labour and Liberal oppositions. His Majesty has now entrusted to my friend and colleague, Mr. Winston Churchill, the task of forming a new administration on a national basis.
When the war began, a former First Lord of the Admiralty was called back into service. Ships of the Royal Navy wagged their signal flags and blinked their blinkers with the message that brought joy to the men of the fleet. The message, Winnie is back. Winston Churchill was back as First Lord of the Admiralty. Now, as Germany invaded the Low Countries, this May 10th, 1940, and Nazi panzers crashed across the borders of France in what would be a death blow, Winnie was back again. Winston Churchill had become Prime Minister of Great Britain.
I speak to you, conquer we shall.
Westinghouse Broadcasting Company has brought you the voices and sounds of World War II, the most dramatic and tragic period in the history of man. This program was written, produced, and directed by Bud Greenspan. My name is David Perry.